Good morning. Wow. What a great opportunity for us to have a really rich discussion this morning about what we're going to do to bring more educators into the classroom and in the building as building leaders and the superintendency. We often say, well, there's an educator shortage because that's who we are, right? There's a nursing shortage, there's an engineering shortage, there's a worker shortage in America and in Kansas. So don't think that we're the only occupation. Unemployment is at historic lows in our state, and some would argue, I think, economists may argue, that we're at full employment for those that want to work, can work. And so we're going to have to think differently, and I think we all are. As we go throughout the day, though, I just want to challenge us to have an open mind as we go forward. You know, it was just a few years ago that I established a Blue Ribbon Task Force on teacher vacancy and supply that was co-chaired by Rudy Perez, the principal at Norton, Kansas, and Dr. Ken Weaver, who was the Dean of Education in Emporia State at the time. And they put together a whole set of recommendations to these people, the State Board of Ed. And this conference is one of those recommendations that came out of that. Kansas State said, we will host, we will be a part of this. And you see many deans here from private and public institutions, because this is all of us working together of how we're going to do this. The state board members are keenly interested in the work that you do. And so when we talk about this work that we have in front of us, and oftentimes I talk about it in a sense of where we're going with students, we're only going to get there with students if we really have an informed teaching staff and principals and superintendents. And so I think these conversations that we'll have today are great, but only if it inspires us to take some action that impacts what we want to see going forward. So if you haven't had the opportunity to get to meet these 10 wonderful people, many of them are here today, and Michelle introduced them, I encourage you to do so. So oftentimes people ask me, what keeps you up at night? Well, this weekend I was getting the Teachers of the Year team. I was like, are you exhausted? They said, no, we're still on a high, so we're crashing into Thanksgiving then, okay? Because you cannot, you can't go through this business without walking in a classroom or walking into a building and running into one of these people or some of our teachers of promise or some of these outstanding kids and just not think, we not only have a chance at this, we're going to get this done. As difficult, as some days may be, we're going to get this done. And so what keeps me up at night is just how do we ensure that the adults that we have in the buildings we're taking care of in a way that they can then go take care of these great kids and these great families that we are honored to serve every single day. Only about 500,000 are in Kansas schools right now, with about 38,000 Kansas teachers and a whole host of support staff to make this happen. So we are going to lead the world. We're already doing some metrics of that. That's really important for a lot of people that like to deal with the metrics of it. Most school people don't. Higher ed people love to do metrics. Rick Ginsburg knows that we're working on a bullying task force that he graciously agreed to co-chair, and he asks all the time, what's the research say though? Well, let's make sure that the research is clear. Dr. Wynn's going to share with you the research of that. For many of us in the K-12, it's what does our emotions feel? How do we feel about this? How does it look to us? It's that success of each kid, though, that does keep us all up at night as we go forward. So I want to show you a short video. It comes out of the coaching world, a world that I love too. But it's by a gentleman that many of you probably never heard of unless you're in his sport, but he has the most Division I national championships of anyone, and it's not John Wooden or some of the people you would think about, Mike Krzyzewski. And then I want to talk on the other side of this video clip.
Okay, well, you got this picture of me standing next to Mia. This is when she was playing for me collegiately, and of course you can see how young she is. And this is, you know, the girl that fell in love with the game. And of course, I've got a lot of stories about Mia. The one I'm going to share with you is my absolute favorite. I live about 8 to 12 minutes from work, and there are all sorts of different routes I can get there. I can zip out to Estes Drive Extension, take that over to Martin Luther King, rip up Martin Luther, take some side streets. I'm in my office, and if I hit the lights right, I can get there in 8 minutes. There's another route I can go that's a lot more scenic through a park. And on this particular morning, this is the second semester of Mia's senior year, I decided to go through Umstead Park. It's relatively early in the morning. It's sort of late winter, early spring. It's cold out. And I'm ripping through the park, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I can see this figure going 5 and back, 10 and back, 15 and back, 20 and back, 25 and back. And this is our grueling fitness exercise that we call cones. And I'm looking out there, and I pull over, and I'm just watching, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's me. And in between these sprints, you can see her bent over, and just sweat is flying off her brow, hot air is shooting from her lungs. And I was just so impressed with what I saw. I drove into work, I scribbled a note to her, and I forgot about it. 10 years later, after Mia had become world famous, she wrote a book called Go for Goal, and she sent me that book. There in the breastplate of that book was the note I'd written her. The vision of a champion is someone who is bent over, drenched in sweat, at the point of exhaustion when no one else is watching. The final measure of athletic greatness is not what you do in the training session with your peers and teammates. It's basically what you do on your own. And the thing that I absolutely cherish of all the incredible gifts I've been given by players over the year, this was the absolute most heartfelt. Thank you very much.
The quote here, as Anson mentioned, is not Mia's quote, but it's his quote. But I think, you know, today, and I'm going to talk about this a lot, I think about school a lot now. And I think about the organization of school as it relates to adults and it relates to kids. And I had the great opportunity on Saturday, and I'm going to talk about this a lot, to spend some time with these people right here, and remarkable. And I just think that every single day, one of the challenges is educators are bent over, drenched in sweat, right? Putting everything that they have into this business. And it can be a lonely event because we're isolated, we're shut our doors, we think, does anyone really care about us? We pick up I'm going to say pick up a newspaper, which is not true anymore. No one does that. We get on our tablet or we read about, well, what's wrong with education, maybe teachers, and we like, is this is effort worth it? Because we toll in this anonymous working with a kid and working with a family, and no one ever sees that work. No one ever feels that work. But I want to introduce you to some people that represent all of the great teachers here in our state. And it's going to be my pleasure to just get to hang out with them a lot. They may not like this, but they get to hang out with me a lot this next year. If you would give it up for the Kansas Teacher of the Year team. Stand up. Stand up. I'm so honored to get to oftentimes speak on their behalf, and I'm just so grateful for their work, for their passion, and they're gonna grow so much in the next year. And the growth they're gonna grow to go back with their kids and be in the classroom, but they're gonna grow in the sense that they're gonna get to see things that they don't get to see when the door shuts and 44 minutes has to go and then another 44 minutes has to go, or when do I get to go to the restroom because my special time isn't here yet because she was sick today and they didn't get a sub, right, and all those things. So I just wonder, do you agree around this quote? Would you agree with this? The best thing about being a teacher is that it matters. It really matters. The research is clear on this. Of the things that we can control, of the things we can't control, as Larry Lazat used to say, parents are sending their best kids to school. They're not holding the best ones at home. Okay, these are the best that they have. So we can't control what happened to them last night, over the weekend. We can't control if they're coming to school hungry. We can't control whatever experiences, maybe in trauma, that they have. What we can control is that one of these outstanding people are going to be with them to try to mitigate that and to try to move them. So even if they have all these advantages, it really matters. Now here's the kicker. The hardest thing is that it matters every single day. And that energy, right? Mia Hamm. It's not a marathon, it's a sprint. Because you can't pace it. It's all out every day, all the time. And for those people that don't work in this profession, they never get what drives all of us. It's something in our DNA that says when we get up and we see those young people, whether it's you're a secondary teacher with 180 or an elementary with 27, we care as much about that kid and that family as his own family cares about them. You know, my sister's in communications. She doesn't get it. She tries. She's very supportive of teachers, but she just doesn't understand it. So the challenge for all of us today and throughout the rest of the year is, how do we draw more people into this wonderful profession? How do we see in a child right now that's at Manhattan High or at Rock Creek or at Raleigh County or up north at maybe Marysville or over to Abilene or anywhere around this, and we see in them, I can see that. I can see in you that you could be one of you. How do we bring them into the classroom then? How do we inspire them to do that? So I shared this with you last year. I think it's still appropriate because we're, in the holiday season. Some of you recognize this. This is the old Cabbage Patch doll. And I shared this a year ago, but my daughter is 33. She'll be 34 coming up here next month. And I remember when this stinking thing came out. Because my job was to go get one at Sears and Roebuck, and they had none. They had none. Okay? So it wasn't like you could Google it at the time and try to find the best deal off of eBay. You had to go stand, and there was none. And of course, my wife said, Melissa really wants a Cabbage Patch doll. And I'm like, there are none. Okay? And so, I don't know, I can call Mr. Cabbage Patch. I don't know what to deal with. But what created demand for this stinking doll? Well, they're cute and they were everyone had a little identifiable number. But they didn't speak. They didn't run across the room. They didn't do anything. They just sat there. And we had huge demand for that doll, right? Huge demand because everyone wanted one. So what we have to do, so this is outside of the research, you know, this is just me speaking. What we have to do, we have to create demand that everyone wants to be one of us. Everyone wants to be one of us. Oh, okay, if you want to be an engineer, we're sad, but go ahead and do that. Everyone wants, how do we do that? How do we create then demand? I'm going to leave you with a few things. Dr. Wynn's going to talk about the research of that, but some things that I see every day, and in fact, in the last 36 hours, I'm going to share some of that with you. But the things that you're passionate about are not random, they're our calling. We're trying to find that in kids as we go forward. So let me just share with you that on Saturday night as I was driving back from Celebration, a curriculum director in Kansas sent me a long article. She's actually doing her work on a PhD. She's working on PhD, so she's doing a lot of research. And she was panicked on a Saturday night about educator shortage. She works in Southeast Kansas, but she said, where are we going to find these teachers, Randy? What are we going to do? I know that looking at Kathy and Janet and Ann, and you get asked this all the time, right? Dina, our staff gets asked this. I will tell you, there's many pathways. We've had some wonderful programs going on, at Wichita State and at Fort Hays State and here at K-State, all across our private colleges, where we're bringing pairs in the classroom and moving them in. We're bringing substitutes. I told people, not facetiously, go to church and grab all the people teaching Sunday school for the last 20 years. Let's get them going. But I said this last year, this is so true. This is not a license problem. This is I think, how we see our own profession and how we're going to deal with it. So I responded to her and I said, it is. I know when you're going to look for a teacher, we have some great HR people here with us, and I know as you go out, the panic happens is if I can't find that special person that I want to put in front of kids. And she went on to say, her husband, who's also an educator, and I talk all the time, what will happen when all the teachers are gone? And she's worried. And we all ought to be. But there are things that we can do to change that. The Teacher of the Year team is doing just that. And so that celebration that we had on Saturday night, and I say this all the time, it was not about them, even though it was, and their family. I mean, it was cool, because but it was to honor every single teacher in the state. And we ought to have every single teacher in the state show up at that. And so it hurt me that the only legislator in the room was Representative Dietrich. The only legislator in the room. That's on me, and I'll change that. All right? What's on all of us is bring a teacher next time to that banquet. Let them experience what it is to be among 8 of the greatest people that represent this business. So, Dale and I and Kathy went on a little mission not too long ago, said, we want to pay people more. We want to pay people more. This is a very complicated, what you don't do with PowerPoint 101. But I can tell you what you're all doing right now. You're trying to locate your county. I see. I got it. Now you have no idea what the colors mean at all, but there I am. There we are, right there. This is something sent to us by KNEA. We worked really closely. And we said, you know what, we're getting some additional money. The most money ever put in to Kansas education in one time is flowing right now. All right? It will take us a while to adjust, not having money for a few years, but it's flowing. All right, it's flowing. This represents teacher salaries, and in many cases, we've said, you know what, starting salaries ought to be at $40,000 with benefits. You ought to have a career earnings somewhere a little bit over 2.25 times. I'm making that up. I'm looking over here at Mark. Mark probably knows, and Sherry knows what the ratio ought to be, but it ought to be a little bit over 2 times at that. So we clearly ought to be getting close to where teachers can teach and earn 6 figures. That would just be wonderful. All right? And while that may happen in isolation, we're on that. Now, here's the challenge. 40,000 was where we wanted to be last year. Now the new challenge is 45. Okay? So when we go back, it's going to be 45. Because money matters only for you in that you want to feel like that you are paid a fair wage. Other than that, that's not what drives us. I know that. But you want to be, all right? And we're getting there. All right? There's a lot of great people doing this work. I want to thank KNEA. They've really been, they've done a really, really good work with that. And, Kathy and Dale would tell us, we got beat up a little bit on that sometimes, but it was the right thing to do. But money itself, we could put a lot of money into this. It won't really change the game, because what makes people go into this is I've got to change the life. So it's not that money doesn't matter. It's not going to be the sole answer to this. So you've seen this map. I'm encouraged by this. Cindy Couchman knows this because she helps us in Region 1, and we grew this. All right? But I tell people, we're at the Marriott on the east side of Wichita, and my goal is really quick in my lifetime, and I'm an old guy, so in my lifetime, that we're going to have to move like to Century 2 and take over the Expo Center for the Teacher of the Year. And all these regional places that we go, we're going to not have enough. Look at this. These are the regions of the Teacher of the Year. So this is Region 1. 21% of schools nominated someone for Teacher of the Year out of their own school. So you've heard me say this before, but it's so true. We cannot expect other people to pay attention to us if we don't honor our own profession. And I know what's really hard about this, what's really, really hard about this is that none of these people want these accolades. It's not who we are. No, give them to the kids, right? That's who we are. But our friends in higher ed that are here today, help us, please help us. You're better at this than we are. You're better. You honor people to a much greater extent than we do. I'm so impressed by the work that you do. We have to learn how to do this. And here's, I think, the way that we do it, is that every time an honor is bestowed upon a teacher or a principal or anyone, we accept that graciously on behalf of everyone else. And we know that by doing that, we're honoring everyone else. 21%. If we can just grow that to 30, Cindy, we outgrew the country club in Salina. We'll outgrow the Salina Hilton Garden Inn. We'll go to the Tony's Pizzeria Bicentennial Center, whatever it's called, whoever owns it now. All right, that's where we're headed. All right, Cindy hates when we have to change those things because it's a big deal. So 21, grow it to 30. How do you do that? Go back home, get a local bank or someone to sponsor a little celebration that you have at home, and you honor a teacher that you're going to put up for Teacher of the Year. And if they need help filling out the state application, we got a whole host of teacher educators that will help them. We'll do it. All right? So we grew that, by the way, 2%. Kudos to that. We were at 19, we grew it to 21. We're going to grow it to 25, then we're going to grow it to 30. How about this? 28% in South Central. If you take out Wichita and the metro areas, again, we get in the rural. And I was in McPherson a long time. Erica knows. We had great people say, I don't want the recognition. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. One of my best friends out in Halstead, he and I taught in Andover. He doesn't want that recognition. Yes, you do. Because it's not about you. It's about this profession that we have to change about who goes in. So you look at this, 31% in southeast and northeast Kansas, Jim Porter's district and Dina Horst, because we have to split it. It goes border to border. Again, you take out the Topeka area, Jim would tell you there's almost no one in southeast Kansas. And then, you get over in Janet Wall's area and Michelle and Steve, and we have 91%. By the way, you can almost track this where we have teacher shortage. That's a correlation. There's no research on that, but I'm just saying, all right, you can almost track this. So we have to honor ourselves better. We just have to do that better and better. This morning, as I drove in, someone I don't know posted a tweet, but a superintendent in Kansas is the reason I saw it, because I follow like no one on Twitter, retweeted it. And it was posted Sunday night. Tonight, hundreds of thousands of educators are staying up late thinking they can handle it because they only have 2 days of school this week. Thousands of admin are going to have to put up with very grumpy staff tomorrow. Just saying. I have a whole set of Kansas teacher posts that send the wrong message about who we are. I think that's the wrong message. I think we only have 2 days this week. We get to spend them with kids, and then we get to send them off to Thanksgiving, many of which, by the way, Dean Mercer said this, you have more social emotional issues in your school? Guess when suicide's the highest? Holiday season. Why? Because the best place they have is with you. And they're going to go for a few days. And then at Christmas, they're going to go for a longer period. And we should be doing just like at the start of school. We hate to see you go. We can't wait to see you come back. And when they come back, we ought to be right there, right? Just like with the band playing. We have to see that narrative. I know you're tired. You're bent over, drenched in sweat. But we can't let people know that on social media because it drives other people away from the profession. We have to be able to say to our own colleagues in a nice way, I know you're tired. I saw how much effort you put in. But don't do that. Don't do that. Don't say, hallelujah, it's a snow day. I want one of those too, okay? I get it. But you see what happens? It did my heart so much good this week. I was in Neodesha, one of our great communities right at the average size in Kansas, where I got to sit next to some really wealthy people, 1962 and a 1959 graduate from Neodesha that said, we're going to give some money to every kid in this school, and they're going to get to go to a free college or vocational school or technical school free. And no one in that audience, kids, knew that was coming. This is a tweet that I captured because afterwards I grabbed this young lady who was crying in the audience, all right? The seniors were crying. Changed their life. And I said to her, so that you can kind of see, this has been Heather reported. So on the far right, I said to her, so what do you think you want to do? B, she says, I'm going to, and Brad knows, I don't care where you're going. I want to know what your passion is. And she says, I want to be a teacher. That's the hug, okay? She wants to be an ag teacher. She's coming to K-State, all right? Irregardless of where she's going, she wants to be a teacher. I said, would you think about coming back to Neodesha? She said, I hope I can. I hope I can. Now, you know what I hope? Neodesha, she's going to get to go for free. In my hometown of Coffeyville, that's probably not true, but I hope something happens. I would hope that in every one of our communities, we could identify that 1 or 2 or 3 or 8 or 10 special people like Carter that want to be a teacher, and we can go find a bank that says, I'll sponsor you if you come back and teach in our hometown and give us 5 years. I'll invest in you. I bet you'll have people. I know you will. I'm with businesses all the time. Let's go do that. We have some schools that are doing that. So I think it's changing the narrative and how we talk about it. And that's why Saturday night is just such a celebration for me and Dale and everyone in the agency. It's just an opportunity to get to see just these remarkable people that spend their lives with kids and then watch them get dressed up and comb their hair, brush their teeth and, eat a nice meal and not think, well, they did think, I got to get my lesson plans done. I got sub plans. I know they did. But just take a little time and downsize. The other thing, we go back to the success of each kid. We are really trying to change education for students. But what we don't talk about as much is this part of this change. We have now we have 66 school districts and 160 some schools trying to do this. We're in the early stages trying to figure this out. But I will tell you this, as we redesign for students, what we've said is we have to put these teachers know what to do. Administrators know what to do. We have to put everyone, parents know what to do. They're telling us, put everyone in a room for a long period of time and go design the school that you want your own kids to go to. Take away all the stuff that you don't like and design the schools that you want to. It's powerful when you give teachers that voice. It's scary at first. They go, I don't know. I've never been asked. Usually it's like, when would you like to take recess? And then, and then you have all these parameters. Well, you can't do that because the buses have to run. And, now, no, we start with a clean slate. And what we've seen is, in many of these schools, is once teachers own this process, it's theirs. And they will work harder. I can't believe this. I can't believe it because they already are working. We have one school, they said, our planning time is going to be after school. That's outside your contract time. That's when we want to do it. That's what they wanted to do. I'm not advocating, it's theirs. And once they own that, see, what happens is these guys are going to go back to their classroom. And next door is a young teacher that they're mentoring. And they don't even get to see that teacher until the end of the day, or maybe at recess, or maybe at lunch. They never get to watch that move that you go, whoa, that was remarkable. Because it just comes innately to these people. And they won't know that, and they won't get to see the move with a beginner. They go, I used to make that one too. Now, if we just tweak this a little bit, you're going to get a little bit different outcome. Because it's a lonely profession. But what if we worked in teams differently? We weren't trained. I wasn't trained to work in teams. I was trained to shut the door and deliver content. So as we think about this thing about how we're going to do it with young people, we're also thinking about how do we do it differently with adults that make this a profession that you love to come together and work together. And there's some really good benefits of research that kids will learn even better in that environment. We're in the early stages of this. I said this Saturday night, and it's so true. I mean this sincerely, I've never been more encouraged than I am today. Never been more encouraged. Everything, 99%, take out money, because that's the legislature, and we have more money. Almost every one of our problems have a solution that educators can deliver together. What is reminding me in my job is that our education family, from early childhood to higher ed and everything in between, often disagree with how we go about that, which is fine. It's okay. All right? It doesn't mean we don't roll up our sleeves. We ought to disagree. We ought to come about this. But I am very encouraged about, we are going to see this. But we grow the Teacher of the Year program. We start growing in every county teachers that have scholarship, high school kids that are in a pathway to be a teacher, that are getting to spend time with outstanding teachers, that then we then scholarship 1, and then we scholarship 2, then we scholarship 5, and then they come back and they stay forever. At the same time, we continue to grab paras and people teaching Sunday school, and anyone that wants to come back into the profession, we want to do that. That's the way I think we're going to go after teacher shortage. That's the way we can benefit and go after the non-pharmacy kids and the non-engineer kids and all the others, is doing that. It won't be going to career fairs and waiting, you know? Right, Andy? We're way beyond that. That was the old days. Go to Fort Hays State, you know, and we'd just see all the kids walk in. Now you go to Fort Hays State and see all the adults eating donuts. Right, Paul? I mean, it's just the nature. We have to just think differently about it. And so we're going to leave here, and the first thing we're going to do is help all of our colleagues tell the young people in our school, we're really going to miss you when you leave for Thanksgiving. And we're going to miss our colleagues, and we can't wait to see you. Have a great time with your family, and you know, and we can't wait to see you when you come back on Monday. So have a great time. Dr. Wynn's going to go over with you some uniquely Kansas research about this. Looking forward to that. Have a great time today and engage in the conversation and help us move this thing forward. Thank you.